5 API calls in 30 seconds. Let me say that again. 5 API calls in 30 seconds. Please do hold on to those numbers, because I'm going to ask them back towards the end of the presentation. Ahmed, I'm the CTO of Currency Cloud, and I'm here to tell you a little bit of a story. And with me, I have Nick. He is the CTO of BoPay, one of our customers, and he's going to keep me honest. So we want to tell this story that is probably very familiar to all of you. It's the story of developers that have a very good idea to develop an app. The app might be a social app. The app might be a way to expedite or to simplify the business process. And this app eventually will have the need to be able to move money from point A to point B. Actually, to make it a little bit more interesting, is going to make money from one country to another country. So as a developer, what options do we have? There are essentially two options. Either you build it yourself, or you go ahead and consume somebody else's service. The problem with international payments is that if you're trying to build it yourself, you're going to start facing a number of things. And that is going to take it's going to take time. In some cases, it's going to take several years to get to the point where you can do it correctly. And as you very well know, the key to success is not just to have an application that is fit for purpose, but it is also to be able to get to the market faster than your competition. So looking into the complexities of developing your own rails to be able to transact and send money internationally, things that you're going to start facing with is keeping it, the idea of be quick to market. You are going to be dealing with a lot of regulations across multiple countries, and it gets really, really complex. On top of that, you probably are going to require some licenses. And then in addition to that, you start to think about which payment rails do you want to use in your backend, because it's going to be more than one payment rails. And then in addition to that, you have to start dealing with third-party providers, thinking about who do you want to use, who's going to do your RegTech, who is going to do the analysis and the risk assessments, who is going to facilitate your KYC process. On top of that, you have to develop relationships with banks. And those, they take time, especially if you do it across multiple countries. They really, really take a lot of time. And then is the KYC. You have to be able to know who is the person that is sending money, and you have to know who is the person that is receiving the money. And then it's the data. Everybody wants to get a piece of the data. The good guys who want to monetize it, and the bad guys that want to try to do something nefarious with it. So you have to put all sorts of systems and controls in place that are going to protect your key asset, which is your customer's data. And on top of that, every country, particularly in the US and in Europe, if you really take a very nonchalant approach to keeping your data, you probably are going to end up in jail. And then, of course, you have to be able to provide different ways to reconcile and report the data. Trying to do this all on your own, honestly, is going to take a lot of time. Why would you do that? And that's where we come in play. So Currency Cloud is a company based in the UK, and we have been in business for about 7 years now. And as the lady that introduced us mentioned, we just got a Series D round. And in addition to our previous backers, we also got the investment from Google Ventures, which we're very, very proud of, because it is the first time that Google Ventures actually invest on a payments or a consumer company outside of the US. Now, this story that I was telling you, if you do it yourselves, it's not necessarily going to have a happy ending, because you're talking about developing something and get to market in a lot of time. And for many of our customers, by the way, I forgot to mention we're a B2B2C, so we sit behind other companies. We never go to the consumer directly. And what we bring to our customers is precisely compressing the time to market using whether you want to use APIs and you want to integrate directly, or you want to use our web interface. And with me, I have, as I mentioned, Nick from BoPay, who is one of our customers. And I would like him to tell you a little bit of the story of the journey that they took and some of the challenges and some of the advantages they saw by using Currency Cloud. Nick?
Great. So BoPay, we're a consumer-facing service, a multi-currency wallet, basically, which means that users can deposit funds, they can convert them to other currencies, and then they can do stuff with that money. And the most common use case we see is sending money to family overseas or to yourself overseas if you're working, in country and your home is elsewhere. So as Ed mentioned, there's lots of hurdles when it comes to sending money overseas. And so when we started looking into this, we were looking for partners, and we came across Currency Cloud, and really we found that they would deal with a lot of the headaches and a lot of the challenges for us. So there's three main things from our standpoint that they provided. The first one was KYC to the destination. So we still need to be licensed in our, the countries that we serve direct clients in. Right now that's Canada. We're also expanding to the US. But we don't have to worry about KYC for the other countries that we're sending money to. So Currency Cloud deals with all that for us. So whether it's Singapore, UK, US, anything that Currency Cloud supports, we're able to push money there and not worry about the licensing and those issues there. The second thing they give us that's really important for our model is local settlement. So they have the direct relationships with the bank, allowing direct deposit. I believe you support SWIFT for some countries, but
all of the countries in Europe.
So for all the countries in Europe, we don't use SWIFT, but it's the local direct deposit that was really critical to us in terms of keeping the the fees down for our users. And then the third thing that they gave is really just, frankly, competitive conversion rates. So everything's based on the mid-market plus a very small markup. So it's very competitive, it's very transparent. So it was just a great fit. And then we also found they dealt with a number of more subtle things. So issues or challenges that we didn't really realize that we would face until we were working with the API and realized you're taking care of things for us just by the nature of how it works. So there was a lot of pleasant surprises there. So I think what we're going to do now is just walk through our integration journey, a simplified version of it. And Ed's going to demo this live as we talk about the APIs and how we go about sending money.
Thank you. I was planning on doing a little bit of a dance just to appease the demo gods. Nick mentioned that if I were to do that rather than appease them, probably I'm going to piss them off. So I'm not going to do that because probably they will wipe out energy in the next 20 blocks. But rather than doing that, we wanted to show you our Swagger interface, but kind of somebody did that yesterday. So then I thought, you know what, let me show you our Postman, but somebody did it yesterday. So the crowd seems very, very technical. So I thought, you know what, why not go hardcore? So I'm just going to show the 5 APIs that I mentioned. I'm just going to use curl, because as a developer, at least you will be able to see that there is no smoke and mirrors behind it. And hopefully, I'm going to be able to do this manually in 30 seconds or less. Now, keep in mind that, of course, once you do this automatically, all this journey is compressed into about 2 or 3 seconds. So,
the first, I guess.
So yeah, let me just switch over.
So the first API call we're going to see here is just to authenticate. It's pretty routine. You authenticate to the service, you get a token back, and that gets used for the subsequent calls.
There we go. So I don't know if you can see it, but this is my token, which now I'm just going to copy and very quickly paste in all of my API calls. That's 1. That's 2. That's 3. And 1 more, 4. There we go.
So the next call here, I think it's going to be to get some conversion rates. So looks like we're going to be converting.
Oops.
Try that again.
There we go. Just make sure that I'm getting everything. So you see, I should have done my little dance. Shift all the way, copy and paste. And so what I'm doing here, I'm just getting a conversion rate between US and Euro. So I'm just saying I would like to sell some US, I would like to buy some euros. And what is the exchange rate that you're going to give me? So the API is just saying, this is the amount that I want to buy in euros, and this is how much dollars I'm going to have to sell in order to get that amount. It is important to note that the conversion rate that we're offering, it is probably one of the closest to mid-market rates that you can get. So one of the value adds that we think, and one of the reasons why we think we're different to many of the other companies, is that we offer really, really sensible prices. So we try to keep that spread incredibly tight.
So then, assuming we're happy with the rates there, the next call is going to actually be to go and convert the funds. So in this case, as Ed mentioned, we're going to be buying euros and selling US dollars.
Yep. So what I have done is essentially, if you think in terms of a flow, I log into my system, I requested a rate, I like the rate, now I'm going to book that rate. So at this point, Currency Cloud is guaranteeing me that for the next 24 hours or 72 hours, depending on the account that you have with us, those rates are going to hold. So if the market actually swings against you, you are protected.
And then the next step is going to be to actually figure out who we're going to send the money to. And I think in this case, just for time, we're going to be adding or just selecting an existing beneficiary. But essentially, the way it works is that you'll register a beneficiary with the Currency Cloud service. Once you've registered them once, they're there, you have an ID for them, and you can just reference them to send to in the future. One thing I will mention about the adding beneficiaries is that the fields, the KYC requirements, all that information is different from country to country. So Currency Cloud actually provides an API that sends back data on exactly what those required fields are for each country. But beyond just saying what the fields are, it actually also gives you a series of regular expressions so that you can validate the data that you're going to be sending into those fields before actually sending it. So in our case, that actually lets us dynamically generate the portion of our UI that generates the form for our clients. So the really nice thing is when it comes to adding additional countries, it's literally a matter of turning on a flag in our system. It just the APIs deal with the rest of that for us.
Okay. So what I have done is I just retrieved the list of beneficiaries that I typically use. Now I need to pay Uncle Guido in Italy. And you don't mess up with Uncle Guido. When he needs the money, you have to move on and pay it. So I'm going to select the ID that describes who the Uncle Guido. And then I'm just going to put the ID on this call. And we're going to copy all of these. Let me just put a little bit of a space. And bada bing, bada boom. I pay Uncle Guido, so right now I don't have to fear for my life anymore. Now, of course, we presented a little bit of sort of the dirty way to do it, just directly with curls. As I mentioned before, there are a number of facilities that we provide. So if you go to our developer.currencycloud.com website, so one of the things that it will take you directly is to our API overview. So we have documented all of our API, and within those APIs, you can select, once you log in into the system, then you can use this user interface to actually try and test all the APIs. We also offer on GitHub, we have a collection of all the API calls in Postman that just essentially facilitates your development, your testing, and your debugging. And on top of that, for people that do not really want to use, well, that expires. I'll probably log in a little bit. For people that don't want to use the directly API, that much rather use a web interface, we also provide that. We can white label it. So if you want to essentially display it with your brands and colors, that's something that we typically do for all of our customers. And that web interface actually in the back end is calling exactly the same APIs. At this point, I'm just going to go back to my presentation, just do a quick, I think that we have 47 seconds. So I'm just going to do a little shout to some of our customers, in addition to WebPay. And of course, to our investors. As I mentioned before, all of our investors in previous rounds also contribute for Series D. And Google Ventures then decided they thought that they saw something good, obviously. And now they invested as well with us. And I think that we are ready for questions. How many countries Currency Cloud supports direct bank deposits? Ooh, 1, 2, 3. I mean, G20 to start with, and then we'll, of course, start working towards the long tail. The easiest way for me to answer actually is just to give you a full list. I can tell you, why don't you go to our website? That's probably a bit of a cheating. But at the end of this session, please go to our booth, and then we can give you a full, the full list. We do support 120 at the moment. We're supporting 120 currencies. If you would have asked me that question about 6 months ago, I would have said probably we are supporting about 90 to 100. If you ask me the same question in about 3 months, probably I'm going to be telling you that we support about 180, close to 200. So obviously, it is in our best interest to keep adding currency pairs that are going to give you not just the standard, the big ones, but also the long tails. How does the cost of transferring money using Currency Cloud compare with other conventional competitors? Okay, great question. We pride ourselves to be, number one, very transparent. So, and secondly, we also pride ourselves to give you the most competitive rates. And what that means is, number one, you will get mid-market rates. You will be able to see exactly what is the very tight spread, the basis points that we're going to add, and that depends on the currency pair, depends on the different countries where the money is coming from or where the money is going to. In terms of what differentiates us from everybody else, we are essentially looking after 2 target markets. So we want to cater for companies that are looking for a cheap and cheerful, easy on, easy off, meaning companies that would like to start having the ability to send money internationally, but eventually, as they grow, they may decide to actually bring some of that business in-house. We want to support you as well. We want to be part of that journey. Obviously, we will try to keep adding services to keep you within ourselves in using our services, but eventually, if you want to move on into something else, we are going to facilitate that transition. So in other words, there is no lock-in. In addition to that, we also want to be the sidekick. So we want to be the sidekick to the hero. We're never going to upstage you, but when it's needed, we can stand our own ground with our awesome ninja powers and save the day. But we will work behind you. Settlement timeframes, they varied. They varied, and those are the things that essentially are outside of our control, because it depends on the channel. It depends if you're using local payouts. In some countries, we have same-day payment facilities, and the actual payment will take less than an hour, in many cases, to clear. One of the things that we pride ourselves also to keep you updated as to what is the flow of money. So giving you a little bit of an ETA, if you wish. We cannot guarantee it, unfortunately, because it's completely outside of control. We have customers in Latin America. So as you can imagine, it's come and talk to us. Because yes, we can support you. There is a number of things that we will need to discuss with you, particularly around KYC and validation and all of that, but we certainly can support you. No, we have no competition. We're unique. Well, obviously, our competition, the Western unions of the world, for example, the banks we have a little bit of a love-hate relationship. Anybody that claims that can send money, it's a potential competitor. So obviously, what's the word that I'm looking for? It's a sort of a commodity type of business. And the only way we survive is by being fast, by being transparent, by being really, really price friendly. And I think that means that I am out of time. So apologies if I couldn't get to any other questions, but please do join us in our booth outside. Thank you.